Hello everyone, I'm Jim Hughes, and on this edition of Oxford News This Week, in today's headlines, new safety measures implemented at the Oxford Community Schools, a weary weekend for an Oakland County Sheriff's Office, and an absentee ballots coming to mailboxes near you. That and more. Sit back, stay tuned, because you're watching Oxford News This Week. And welcome back. A new safety plan for the Oxford Community School System has been implemented for the 23-24 school year. The plan was presented to the Board of Education during the August 22nd meeting and the final Board of Education meeting before the start of the brand new school year. August 24th. The changes include a 24/7 weapons detection system, an upgraded visitor management system from DriftNet, silent alarms, and advanced digital threat assessments. It is also slated to that students in grades 6 through 12 as well as staff must wear visible ID badges at all times, and that there will be an increase in weapons dog detection usage at each school. The school district is also implementing technology known as geofencing to detect when students enter or exit campus. Despite the changes, some families still upset and disappointed in the district and their safety decisions, believing that focusing on mental health and emotional learning would be better suited to addressing and preventing danger to students. The view of the recording of the full August 22nd Board of Education meeting can be seen on Oxford Community Television's YouTube page. After 26 years of service to young people at the Oakland University and Camp Oakland project, Chris Weil, the Clinical Diversity Inclusion Director, recently retired with a farewell luau, Oxford at the Camp Handsome Lake Camp Oakland. It's a nonprofit organization that has been in part of the Oxford community for well over 70 plus years. OCTV's Chuck Cameron had the opportunity to speak with Chris about his many years helping the youth at Camp Oakland.
So start me from the beginning, if you would, Chris. How does a young person get here? Why are they here?
Well, the agency itself has been here for 70 years, and we've always provided therapeutic and behavioral services for court-adjudicated youth. So all of our adolescents that are on this campus are here on a court order. So they've gotten themselves involved in the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system in some varying degree. And unfortunately, eventually, their jurists decided, you know what, you need a deeper level of care. And so we are one of very few what are classified as non-secure open campuses in the state of Michigan. And what that means is we don't have any locked doors, we don't have any gates, there's no fences, there's no bars on windows. We provide them, as you can see, with an unbelievable therapeutic environment for them to come out and do the work they need to do to be able to get back into their homes in the community.
So if you had a message to the folks in our communities, plural out here, Addison, Oxford, about what's going on here, what would you want them to know that's going on here? What do they need to really know about this place?
Well, they need to know is that this place is a sanctuary. It's a safe haven for young people who desperately need help. And that's what we do. That's what we're providing for them. And we need their help.
Mr. Weil will continue providing assistance to at-risk youth in his capacity as owner-practitioner of the Lapeer Family Development in Lapeer. Good luck on the retirement. The Charter Township of Oxford wants you to check your mailbox. Nearly 18,000 permanent absentee voter ballot applications were mailed out to registered voters in Oxford Township on the August 22nd. If a resident joins the permanent absentee voter ballot list, it means that resident wishes to vote absentee in all and future elections. By completing the application mailed out on August 22nd, you will automatically receive an absentee voter ballot through the mail for all and future elections. Applications can be mailed to the Township Clerk's office located at 300 Dunlop Road, or you can email Deputy Clerk Susan McCullough at smccullough@oxford.org. I'm sure that'll appear below my name face here. The application also can be delivered in person at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Those who have any further questions, contact the township office if you're interested in an absentee ballot, 248-628-9787. A motion passed at the August meeting of the Addison Township Board authorizing Supervisor Pearson to enter negotiations for the purchase of a lakefront property adjacent from the township offices. The property, which was initially donated to the library, ended up not being viable for the consideration and the cost that had proposed for the new structure. Since then, the library purchased property at 900 Lakeville Road, leaving the other donated land inactive. Township Supervisor Bruce Pearson suggested that the property could be bought by the township, used as a park and lake access for the residents in the area.
As everyone knows, the library now has a new location on Lakeville Road, and we're working on details on there for the build of that. And I think this property across the street here is an ideal thing that the township could use as a park. It does have a little bit of water frontage. I believe that we could possibly put in a small dock there for people to launch kayaks or something like that. And it would be a township park, so we could limit it to our township residents. And I just think it's a great idea, and it will also facilitate the library for building on a much better piece of property. And this is, I think, good park property. The building of it is very difficult, and I know the library ran into those issues. What I'm asking for is if you let me just negotiate, go forward and find out what the price would be and everything with the library, then come back and explain it to the board and then see what you guys think of it.
Current library president James Baldiga agreed that the situation was ideal for the community and its usage.
So yeah, I mean, this was in the works, and like Bruce said, I'm not going to reiterate a lot of it, but with it being a donated property, it was kind of iffy, but it was a gray area of what we could do with it because the intentions are donating where to build a library on it. So Bruce had conversations with the donor. With our limited restrictions, this could be a good option. It would help with funding the construction on a new property. We feel we're doing our due diligence, just not spending a whole lot of money to fill in a hole to be able to put a library on it. I think we're going to have much better opportunity on the new land, and we're hoping, talking to some of our engineers, that this week, if not maybe next week, we'll be able to submit for the site plan application, special use and site plan. So this would just really help that project a lot, being able to get it into better hands or equivalent hands, and so it has good community usage, and then help bring that home to the library on another lot. I think it's just as good.
And the next scheduled meeting for the Addison Township Board will be on September 18th. Local restaurant G's Pizzeria is teaming up with the Oakland County Deputy Sheriff's Association Family Benevolent Fund for a night filled with comedy, cuisine, and a good cause. On Friday, October 6th, the pizzeria is hosting a comedy night at its Oxford restaurant to add for first responders, their families, and others in need. Doors will open at 6 p.m., followed by a pizza and salad buffet. Starting at 7:30, comedians Steve Lynn, Cam Rowe, and Matt Kahn will open their sets. The event is adults only, and tickets are $50 and 40% of the proceeds going to the OCDSA Family Benevolent Fund. Over 4 years of the fund's existence, the nonprofit organization has distributed nearly $500,000 to first responders and their families across the state, as well as to residents of the Oakland County Family Benevolent Fund. President Rich Noble said that every dollar that is donated, 98+ cents, goes to help those in need. The fund aids those in need paying medical, mortgage, utility bills, prescription expenses, food and transportation costs, and also helps with natural disaster recovery efforts. To learn more about the fund, you can visit thebennyfund.com. If you're interested in possibly purchasing tickets for the comedy night, check them out at mo-town-mark.com. The final day of the Miller hearing for the Oxford school shooter culminated by planned dates for an actual decision and announcement in the sentencing hearing from the judge presiding over the actual case. Oakland County Judge Kwame Rowe listened to the Miller hearing arguments for nearly a full month before the final testimony arrived on the 18th of August, Friday. Over the 4 days of the hearing, the prosecution and defense presented reasons for and against the life sentence without a possibility of parole. Judge Rowe said he expects to consider all the evidence, including an expert testimony and the reports, research, data, eyewitness accounts, and to conduct his own research before presenting a decision on Friday, September 29th at 9 a.m. The hearing will be held virtually and is not an official sentencing hearing that is required in the last step of the Miller hearing. The tentative date for the official sentencing hearing is December 8th, where the shooter is committed to prison and victims have an opportunity to make impact statements. The sentencing date was scheduled several months out due to the required report from the Michigan Department of Corrections. Oxford Community Television has decided not to travel past or future hearing sites in its understanding of its emotional toll and event that it does take on our community. An Oakland County Sheriff's deputy fatally shot a 32-year-old man following resistance to an arrest and a car crash on Friday. It was August 18th. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office stated that the deputies were dispatched shortly before 6 a.m. to respond to a complaint about a vehicle blocking a driveway. The vehicle driver was asleep in the running automobile with a gun beside him and the door unlocked. One of the deputies grabbed the man gun and set it on the roof of the car, instructing the man to place his hands behind his back. The other officer climbed halfway into the passenger side of the vehicle, and in response, the motorist resisted arrest, accelerated, crashing into the patrol car, a curb, and a street sign. The deputy, partially inside the car, opened fire on the man, who was then transported to a local hospital. He was pronounced dead. According to the officials, the man had been released from prison on parole in June and was not supposed to be in possession of firearms. The sheriff's office said that the deputy in the vehicle has been treated in a hospital for unspecified injuries. A Macomb man passed away after his pickup truck collided with two Oakland County Sheriff's vehicles just before midnight on Saturday, August 19th. The deputies were pulled over on the side of M59 in Rochester Hills to block traffic around a vehicle that had been caught fire. The driver of the Ford F-150 truck failed to move over or slow down and rear-ended the flashing patrol vehicle in the left lane, causing a spin and hit the police car blocking the shoulder. The truck driver, now identified as a 29-year-old Nicholas Leach of Shelby Township, was pronounced dead after being escorted to the hospital. The officer in the rear-ended vehicle endured serious injuries and was in stable condition following the afternoon, while the second deputy was treated for minor injuries. According to the sheriff's office, Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard said that while the crash investigation is ongoing, the event is a tragic reminder to the public to stay safe and capable of driving, be focused and move at least one lane over for any type of emergency vehicles on the side of the road, as it is required by law. A popular Lake Orion wandering homeless man, Bruce Gertz, has passed away at the age of 68. Known by most of the locals simply as Bruce, he was found in his makeshift home behind the KFC on Lapeer Road and died peacefully in his sleep on either the night of Sunday, August 20th, or Monday morning. As a resident of the streets of Lake Orion for over 20 years, Bruce lived an unconventional lifestyle by choosing not to have an address. He was nevertheless continually supported by the community through meals, clothing, even housing during the cold winter months. Mostly days in the recent years, Bruce sat on a bench on the Pier Road, umbrella in one hand, and to shade him from the sun or even the rain, watching the cars as they passed along M24. After Bruce's death, a Facebook page dedicated to him, run by Kim Dunn, a longtime aide of Bruce, left a message for those who knew him and the others who were sympathetic to his passing. He loved Lake Orion. The message he reads, and no matter where they ended up, he always found his way back home. Our thoughts with Bruce as he makes his new venture. The Oxford Downtown Development Authority Executive Director and official Mrs. Michigan is headed to Las Vegas to compete for the Mrs. America title. The August 17th well-wishers waved Kelly Westbrook as she passed through the makeshift parade in downtown Oxford before heading to the airport. Cheerleaders, business owners, members of the public Westbrook is, as she traveled in a car escorted by the village police. Chief Mike Sowell, once in Vegas, she spent the week rehearsing and competing for the big event. On the night of Saturday, August 26th, the 35-year-old is an Oxford High School graduate and will compete against 50 other contestants to work and claim her crown. And yes, now it's time for the Behind the Lens segment. In this week's Behind the Lens segment, we are taking a look at one of the world's smallest feathered friends. This picture of Ruby, the throated hummingbird, was taken by Brandon Township resident Laura Wright using her Canon 7D Mark II camera. With a 300 millimeter lens, she captured this little one feeding off of a butterfly bush. In our last story, of cuddly creations causing change. Up next, yes, Dave Kenny, Auto Talk and Science in the News. You are watching a very well-informed Oxford News this week on Oxford Community Television.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and this story is taken from Automotive News. The nation's top auto safety agency proposed a rule August 21st that would require automakers to equip vehicles with seatbelt warning systems for front and rear passenger seats in an effort to establish consistency and improve seatbelt use. NHTSA's proposed rule would amend a federal regulation for occupant crash protection known as Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 208, which mandates visual and audible alerts to encourage seatbelt use for the driver's seatbelt, but does not require a warning for other seating positions. For rear seats, the proposal would require automakers to add a visual warning once a vehicle is started that lasts for at least 60 seconds and an audio-visual change of status warning that lasts at least 30 seconds if a rear seat belt is unbuckled while the vehicle is in operation. For front seats, the proposal would require an audio-visual seatbelt warning for both driver and front passenger seats that remains active until the seat belts are secured. It also would require an audio-visual change of status warning for both the driver and front passenger seats that remains active until an unbuckled seatbelt is refastened. The requirements would apply to cars, light trucks, and most buses, as well as multi-use passenger vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating of up to 10,000 pounds. Manufacturers would be able to adjust warning signal characteristics such as frequency and volume, NHTSA said. The front passenger seat belt warning requirements would take effect on September 1st, 1 year after a final rule is published. Requirements for rear seat belts would take effect on September 1st, 2 years after a final rule is published. Wearing a seat belt is one of the most effective ways to prevent injury and death in a crash, said Ann Carlson, NHTSA's acting administrator, and she said that in a statement. In 2021, almost 43,000 people lost their lives on America's roads, and half of those in vehicles were unbelted. This proposal rule can help reduce that further by getting more to buckle up. The agency estimates that its proposed requirements would prevent about 300 non-fatal injuries and more than 100 deaths annually. Michael Brooks, executive director for the Center for Auto Safety, said the proposal has been an incredibly long time coming. In a nutshell, this rule has taken far, far too long, Brooks told Automotive News. It should have been protecting rear occupants in 2017. While we're certainly glad to see movement out of NHTSA, the timeline involved only raises more questions about whether the agency is equipped to respond to emerging safety issues in a timely manner, he says. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which represents most major automakers in the U.S., did not immediately have comment on the proposal. Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety, a consortium of consumer, public, and safety groups, as well as insurance companies, said extending seatbelt warnings to all seating positions is urgently needed, adding that the rulemaking was required by Congress more than a decade ago. In a statement August 21st, Advocates General Counsel Peter Kurdock commended NHTSA for moving forward with the rulemaking and urged the agency to complete it without further delay. Kurdock's group was still in the process of reviewing NHTSA's proposal and said it would submit further feedback during the 60-day public comment period. Well, that's it for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.
Back with you, and yes, we do have some sports. Looking forward to a fall sports season. In fact, we're looking forward to have more sports next week. The Oxford boys varsity soccer team faced against the Lapeer Lightning. That took place just yesterday on the 23rd. Despite downpours in the morning and threats of rain in the evening, the boys kicked off their season with a running start. The boys scored an early goal from kick from Jay Cady, who also kicks on the football team. Over the course of the game, Diago Mendel trailed 2 more goals, and newcomer Ryan Clark hit the top of the net to snag another, bringing the final 4-0 over the Wildcat win. The boys now have a record of 5-1-1 as the fall season begins. Now is the time of this week's sports report. Although the year on Woodward Dream Cruise concluded just recently, Oxford Township Parks and Rec is holding an event to vintage cars in the cruise downtown Seymour Lake Township Park for a sporty good cause. On Thursday, September 7th, that's coming up real soon, Oxford Parks and Rec is hosting the Vintage Car Show to raise funds for the Oxford Pickleball Project. Pickleball is a sport that combines elements of tennis, badminton, and table tennis. Pickleball games feature a small plastic ball similar to the wiffle ball, bouncing across a badminton-sized court and over a modified tennis net. 2 or 4 players use the paddles to compete until one side of the net is unable to return the ball. According to the Oxford Parks and Rec, pickleball popularity is growing within the community, and so the Pickleball Project was born to provide funding for the improvements. Money will be raised through the event. Grilled up some concessions, including both hot dogs, hamburgers, as well as a 50-50 raffle to try to raise money. There will also be music, dancing throughout the evening. The event will run from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you'd like more information, you can always contact our Parks and Rec department. Of course, Supervisor Dawn Medici at 248-628-1720. Once again, pickleball, and if you want to help them out. We'll be back in a moment. We'll have our last story, and we'll say goodbye. I know Dave Kenny's got something else up his sleeve. We'll have him in here, too. You're watching Oxford News This Week.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and this story is taken from New Scientist. India has become only the 4th country to successfully land an intact craft on the moon as its Chandrayaan mission successfully touched down on the lunar South Pole. It has become the first nation to explore the potentially water-rich polar region. The Indian Space Research Organization's ISRO's Chandrayaan-3, which takes its name from the Sanskrit word for mooncraft, took on board a launch vehicle Mark III rocket from the southern state of Andhra Pradesh on July 14th and spent 6 weeks covering about 380,000 kilometers en route to the moon. ISRO said in a tweet that the landing had taken place 40 days, 3 hours, and 29 minutes after launch. The mission placed the Vikram lander at a spot with water reserves which could help make a permanent lunar base possible. Chandrayaan-3 slowed itself while in orbit before briefly hovering stationary at 150 meters above the surface. Then it made a slow vertical descent to a successful landing. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, spoke remotely to a mission control and said, "India is now on the moon." He went on to say, "Friends, on this joyous occasion, I would like to address all the people of the world, the people of every country and region." And he went on to say, "India's successful moon mission is not just India's alone. The success belongs to all of humanity, and it will help moon missions of other countries in the future. I'm confident that all countries of the world, including those from the global south, are capable of achieving such feats. We can all aspire to the moon and beyond." Sri Sankrayan, director of ISRO's U.R. Rao Satellite Center, said, "Today we have achieved what we set out to achieve in 2019. It was delayed by about 4 years, but we have done it." He said India will now be looking to put a human into space and send a craft to Mars. The preceding Chandrayaan-2's mission ended in failure in 2019 when a software glitch caused its Vikram lander to crash into the moon's surface. It was destroyed along with the 6-wheeled rover it contained named Pragyan, which would have explored the moon's south pole. The earlier Chandrayaan-1 mission consisted of a lunar orbiter and a probe designed to deliberately hit the moon at speed and again targeting the South Pole. India's latest mission is designed to land softly and carry out scientific research. Chandrayaan-3 is a repeat of the Chandrayaan-2 mission, but with no orbiter. Instead, the Vikram lander and rover handled their own communications with Earth beyond the need for its intermediary satellite. Once released, the rover is expected to last just 2 weeks in the harsh lunar environment. Previously, only the US, USSR, and China had successfully landed lunar missions intact. A private attempt by a Japanese startup in April ended unsuccessfully when it too crashed into the surface at speed. Russia's latest attempt at lunar exploration, its first moon mission in nearly half a century, also ended in disaster. The Luna 25 lander was due to touch down gently, but instead slammed into the surface at speed after what was intended to be a short engine firing to reposition it seemingly continued for too long, causing it to cease to exist, the Russian space agency Roscosmos announced. And the search goes on. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny.
And in our last story today, we're showcasing how a group of dedicated students giving back to the community through cuddly creations. Over 350 students, volunteers gathered at the Seymour Lake Park in early August to build stuffed animals and donate them to the Oakland County Sheriff's Bears on Patrol program. The event participants are among 42 strong, the Tate Muir Foundation and the Foundation monthly team building opportunity toured in a program that gave directly back to the community. The Tate Muir Foundation supports a peer mentoring program that matches high schoolers with middle schoolers to aid students in developing a greater sense of purpose, community resilience, and mentoring programs. It is based directly on the instilling of the qualities of Oxford's tragedy, the victim Tate Muir, of course, displayed in the new generation to prevent students from feeling isolated. This year, the program encompasses 430 students, 31 adult team leaders, both mentors and mentees, I think that's how you say that, come together in a display of the community to produce cuddly creations that will make a change. The dozens of stuffed animals built through the event will be donated to ease the fears of young children who end up on the difficult situation like maybe a car accident or a fire. To learn more about the 42 Strong initiatives and outcomes, visit their website. It's 42-strong-tate.org, or you can go to their Facebook page, 42 Strong. Great last story to finish it all off. As always, we'd like to thank the news gathering sources. This week's news gathered from the Charter Township of Oxford, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, Facebook pages, websites, WXYZ Channel 7, Detroit's Click on Detroit, Fox 2 Detroit, the Detroit Free Press, the Oakland Press, the Detroit News, Channel 4 News, the local Lake Orion Review, the Oxford Leader, and the Oxford Township Parks and Rec Department. This week's photo credits go out to the Oxford Community School System, Camp Oakland, the Charter Township of Oxford, Addison Township, Carlos Osorio from the Associated Press, Fox 2 Detroit, the Lake Orion Review, the Oxford Leader, Mrs. and Mrs. America Paget's Oxford Athletics, and sportsman Laura Reich. Again, all that to put this newscast together. OCTV can be viewed on Spectrum Charter Channel 191, Channel 99 on the AT&T UVerse system. Check us out on the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and we are working on the Roku app. We'll see you there soon as well. If you have a show idea and would like to be a volunteer, contact OCTV. Give our office a call at 248-628-9658. A very special thank you to our very special producer and director, Mr. Kyle Snage. Videographer Al Campbell chipping in this week. Great writing of Allison Miller. Oh yes, she's really improved our news broadcast here. And our editor extraordinaire, Marissa Rushka. Programmer Connie Miller. Program coordinator Dan Zweiss. Station manager Terry Stiles. For everyone here at OCTV, I'm Jim Hughes, hoping you have a safe week. I invite you back next time. And again, we will take a look at Oxford News this week. Have a great week.